Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am MR, and together with Tauros, we shall venture into another discussion about VNs. Today we lure one very tired, overworked bee away from its hive for a chance to talk about running a fun translation group. Welcome to the podcast, BarryBee.
Hello, it's me. Another day, another dollar. I guess I'll call myself BarryBee for the time being because that's what I've been going for the last 5 years or more. Yeah, let's say 5 or 6 years. But I've been in the visual novel world or whatever you want to call it for quite a long time, maybe 10 years. I'm gonna say 10 years because that's probably close to how it is. And I'm a fan translator for the group Daybreak Translations. You might have not heard of it. I would not be surprised. We're a very small group. And I also do professional translation on the side for Japanese media in several companies. Some of them related to visual novels, in fact. Although, of a more gruesome nature, I don't do mainstream games. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, that's me, dude.
Very cool. Thank you. We're very glad to have you on board, Barry. And, we're really looking forward to all the cool things you can share.
Hell yeah.
So let's start things off. I want to ask about how you got into the visual novel sphere. You mentioned that you've been around for about 10 years or so. How did you get sucked into this whole world of visual novels and weeb stuff?
Okay. So let's wind back. I'm 15 years old. I'm in a trip to the United States of America, and I'm in my aunt's house browsing what back then was the stuff, was the hot stuff, which was Netflix. And they had this one anime, I remember correctly. It was called, oh my god. Is this anime? Okay. Onan High School. There you go. It was called Onan High School. I remember. And I remember I liked it a lot. It's this otome. I think it's actually an otome. Where this girl enters like a school of only guys or something of those lines. I don't remember the plot very well, but I remember enjoying it quite a bit. It was very cliche. The usual cliches you see more in mainstream anime, I suppose. And that got me hooked, and I discovered then other anime, which were, the classics. Bleach, Naruto, I discovered One Piece, but I don't touch that. I don't touch that because it has too many episodes. But one of those, like, after watching a ton of them, I eventually find one called Setokai Ichizon, right? And in this anime, there was this one episode where the protagonist is playing a sim dating game. And that scene, I think it made an impact on me because I remember I looked up what was a sim dating game back in the day, I suppose. And the first link that came up after much looking, because I didn't even know how to call that thing, right? I think I called it sim dating anime game or whatever online.
Yeah, like this was your totally first time even seeing the concept, just an idea of a video game where you get to build romantic relationships with the heroines. It was the first time?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was my first exposure. And I found the first link I entered related to it was Fuanobo, actually, the forums. Which back then, I'm not gonna say Fuanobo was dying back then, but it was definitely on the path already to falling off. It was falling off already quite a bit, but it was still pretty active nevertheless. And after much looking, I decided to try one of those. It was back then when visual novels were stored in like these dodgy sites where you had 20 different downloads of 300 megabytes each.
Oh my god!
You have to compile them all in a single game. My first visual novel was a profile from Akabe Soft 2, if I remember correctly. Terrible visual novel. I didn't like it at all. I think the translation was done by, what was the name of this guy? It was this awful translator that did a lot of visual novels back in the day. He did the old fan translation of Muv-Luv. He did the old fan translation of Rewrite.
Ixcrack? If I'm saying it right? Yeah, I don't recall either, but yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, people thought translations were good.
there was nothing else to go by. So
Exactly.
I would even call it a product of its time. The thing is, well, I'm gonna deviate a bit from this, but basically the reason Xrec has a bad rep is because people there were several hubs for visual novels back then, and one of them was TL Wiki before it closed. And the people at TL Wiki, which basically are now the people at Jazz, most of them at the very least. I'm not gonna say all of Jazz, but a great portion of the Jazz workers were from TL Wiki, and they made this campaign of slander against this dude, right, against Xrec, because I mean, let's face it, he was definitely not a good translator. I wouldn't categorize him as a good one, but I don't think he deserved the wave of hate he got, like, for sure. And now everyone, when they try, at least Old Guard, when they tried to call something a bad translation, they was compared to Xrec. And sure, it makes sense, but there's other translators who are, equally as bad or worse than Xrec, and it's just, I feel like it was a thing done in bad faith.
I don't think anyone gets worse than that George Henry Shaft guy.
Oh, that guy is, well, that guy is not even a translator. That guy is nuts. But
you can't even call him a translator, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's just nuts. That's what he is. I mean, if anything, if he tries to emulate how the writers of the things he translates, quote unquote, are nuts, then yeah, he definitely is insane. And he does it well.
But sorry, back on point. So your very first visual novel was A Profile, and you're telling me you hated it?
Oh yeah, it was a terrible experience. I found it boring. I mean, what do I even expect from this writer? It's Loose Boy, the same writer of Shari no Kuni and G Senjo, right? Those two are his best things, but he has written some hideous stuff, and some of that stuff is A Profile, right? So yeah, I didn't like it at all, and I was about to say, well, if this is what these things can offer to me, then I might just not, right? But then I tried another visual novel, which was this time it was a Manga Gamer release. I remember correctly. It was Kara no Shoujo. I think that was my second visual novel, and that was a complete 180. I fell in love with it. I still think to this day it's the best translation I've read, although that's probably me looking it through the lens of back then, but I still think it's a great piece of work. And it sucked me in. I didn't know it was a trilogy back then. I thought it was a single game. It ended well, and that's when I said to myself, hey man, I would like to participate in some way in this kind of world, right? So that's where I got my idea from, and from there on out, I started looking for visual novel projects, and I probably did the same cringe mistakes like many people have done in the past, where I post a thread and with something like, can you do a translation project without knowing Japanese? Even though the answer is obvious. I was that kind of dude.
Well, so we all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, of course. I got flamed basically, as it should be. And I started as an editor eventually in a group that is now defunct. I think that group lasted 4 months in total. It was called Coffee Translations, and they were translating this game called Imoto Bancho. I think the game is Imoto Bancho. It has a longer title, but I don't remember it right now. But basically, the translator, I think neither of us were good. Right, the translator, it was one of his first pieces of work, and it was my first attempt at editing, so you can imagine how it went. It went terrible, by the way.
Oh no.
Nothing was released. The group died after 4 months, and then I decided to create my own group, even though I was an editor. Well, a big mistake, but I decided to do so. A now defunct group as well, but this was back in 2015, 2016, called Luna Translations. And we started with this game called Majo Koiniki. I think Sekai Project released that because, well, it's a long story. But basically, it's a game that is now released under Sekai Project. And we started fan translating that. And we gathered a lot of projects in, because I was young and retarded, let's put it that way. And I thought that the more projects I participated in, even though it was in a minimal aspect in many of them, then obviously I would become E-famous or whatever. E-fame just drives men mad, TLDR.
You gotta get those internet points.
Exactly. And, well, you can imagine how that group ended up badly. right? That's the TLDR. It ended up not very good. And at the very least, many of the things we were working on got licensed eventually. Like, let me see. At least 2 of them, right? I remember Majokoi got licensed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Witch's Garden got licensed by Sol Press, even though that was not the fan translation. Like, I know for a fact they didn't take that fan translation because it was horrible. It was really bad. And then other things we were working on. A pull-top latte title, which we later found out that it was machine translated by the guy. So not good news.
Oh dear.
What else? I think it was called Ushinawareta Mirai o Motomete, where the translator disappeared for a year, and apparently it was because he went to jail. So, I mean,
Oh dear.
yeah, look, I've seen some stuff. I'm just gonna tell you.
You have unfortunate luck, man.
Oh no, me? Look, I don't care. I'm glad that project was disbanded eventually because that translation was also chills. Let's put it that way. Was chilling to the bone when I read it for the first time. And after that group disbanded after like a year or 2 of activity. And well, things basically I didn't get along with the team members by the time I left. And the TLDR is that many of them told me that I would be useless no matter what, right? And that I would never be useful to a translation project. So out of spite, and it was mostly a spite-based decision, but I decided to learn Japanese back then. And it was in 2016, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And
hell yeah, dude.
And here I am now, I guess. I eventually got the N1, which is like the highest degree of mastery or whatever you want to call it. It's like the proficiency in English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the most. I think it's the most commonly used proficiency test, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So hell yeah, congratulations, dude.
Yeah, dang, that's really amazing, especially since your story, when I'm hearing it proves that the best recipe for revenge is success. Just be better and prove them wrong.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you
I mean,
achieved that.
Oh,
Holy
yeah.
hell.
I don't even think I get along badly with those people anymore. Obviously, we don't talk or anything, but it's been 10 years, and I was 16. So we move on, we forget about it. Who gives a shit at this point? It was so long ago. It was so long ago, and I stayed with 25 years, right? So I don't know.
There's plenty more time, all sorts of time to do all sorts of new projects in the future too. But getting back more into you, Barry, you mentioned how you went from A profile and then you just loved Kara no Shoujo, which are 2 very different genres. So I wanted to ask you, do you have any preferred or any favorite types of VNs, like from moeges or the character dramas or horror? What kind of stuff do you like? Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so moeges? No, bro. I do not read moeges. I used to read them back in the day. I think it's similar to what most people who like these things end up as. You read too much moege, so everything is predictable and boring, and so you turn into like a let's say a plot gay Buddha, right? The Buddha is a pig, so. So basically, you become an addict to games that are centered on overplot or have action elements, right? If I had to guess, I'm not entirely detached from moege. Sometimes I read it. For example, now I'm on a Crystalia streak. That company is like Ubisoft, but different. I would like to say it's better, but it's just different. It's just a different kind of Ubisoft flavor. And I really enjoy that. It has fights, it has action.
Fights and action. Okay, because I can't say I'm a Ubisoft fan or anything like that, but typically they have very cutesy designs and great production values and also their own specific kind of brand of humor. So when you say Crystalis is different, how so? You mentioned action scenes?
Yeah, look, it's basically cute like Ubisoft. It has a lot of tropes. However, it compensates the boringness of slice of life, which I find slice of life generally very boring if the game is just about that. But if it has action scenes, in this case, I'll just be honest. It's a magical school setting, for example, where the characters wear katanas like in Bleach with powers, and they fight each other and stuff like that. And it's cool, I like that stuff. I like that mix,
Oh my god, I cannot agree more. whenever I read slice of life, I'm resident sleeper, just good night. But an example of like what you just said, Saku Saku introduced just the concept of there's some Shinigami or death gods roaming around the school. Enough for me. Okay, now it's interesting. Just sprinkle that with something. You mentioned action, katanas, battles, etc. To me, supernatural also fills the bill.
I mean, the best genre either way though is I guess I'm a karage fan, so karage is just basically moege for people who cope about hating moege. So basically, me.
What kind
Yeah.
of definition?
Oh my god.
So okay, I'll explain. It's basically moege, but it has more. It has a lot more action than your classic moege. So technically, it's not moege. Plus, it focuses more on the characters and their interactions rather than the story itself. Right? It has literally no direction. Oh no, moeges have no direction. Let's say it has little direction as a story, but the characters and their interactions are what matters, and that's karage. So I don't know, Akatsuki no Koi is a karage. Tsukiyoru is a karage.
I mean, personally, though, I've never really been a fan of the phrase karage because, kind of by essence, every title should have characters as a focus. They're literally what's driving the plot forward. But I mean, you would also agree you'd call it something more like a drama, right? You mentioned it's focusing on the plot and it's focusing on, I guess you could say, the character growth and definitely the struggles that they face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like oh my god. Okay. Maybe the best way to explain it would be with Chinese and Japanese soap operas, about fighters and samurai and growth, the growth aspect of the warrior, the protagonist is a warrior, he's weak, and then he struggles to become stronger, and then there's romance sprinkled in between, there's fan service in between as well, but it's not overbearing, it's not the whole story, and a happy ending. That's it. That's exactly what I like. The best example of this, I guess, would be okay. I think the company that best encapsulates what I like most in a visual novel is August. At least that's what I think. So Fortune Arterial, that's fake. Ayoku Neustia and Sen no Hato. Those are the two games that I think encapsulate what I'm trying to explain best.
Interesting. In being a very fairy tale, night on adventure sort of tale, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not the real world, first of all, and then there's stages to the visual novel is not divided into a story and then you choose a route, right? It's how do you say it? Basically, the story happens and you're given a choice to deviate into one girl at some point, and if you say no, the story continues, right? So it's a staircase. It's like a staircase.
Or like ladder structure too.
Yeah, ladder structure. Yeah. So Grisaya, for example, Ayoku Neustia and Sen no Hato are the best examples I can think of this, basically. Okay. It's very good. Plus, the protagonists get growth. There's always a happy ending to some degree. I don't think Eustia's ending is like the best ending, a happiest ending, but it's good in my opinion. It fits my likes. And Grisaya, I guess it's similar in a way. I won't categorize Grisaya as my favorite game, but I think it's a good game. Solid entry for a visual novel. So yeah, that's what explains better what I like. Also, if the games mix classical Japan with modern Japan, I like that. So again, Sen no Hato, the recent Crystalia games I'm reading, which mix the katana fighting, but they are in the modern world, so there's also guns and shit like that kind of stuff.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I don't think I've ever thought about that sort of concept, nor seen any visual novels with that idea of mixing together classical Japan with modern day stuff.
Oh yeah. There's a bunch of them. I'm not going to say there's a lot of them, but again, Sen no Hato, I think Reminiscence Recollect is another good entry that has that mix of classical and modern Japan.
Does those sort of thing include fantasy elements as well? Or is it played pretty straight, like a historical aspect kind of thing?
there's barely if there's supernatural things, it's only like powers with the swords, but not much else apart from that. You know, it's not, there's no monsters, no anything. It's just like the real world, but there's just katanas and people dress with kimonos and cool designs and shit like that. It's just, that's my vibe. You know, I vibe with that.
Have you read Muramasa?
I have.
How would you rate with what you just said about that classical and modernized? In this case, it's kind of futuristic, obviously.
It's different because it has mechas, and mechas already give already a different vibe to what I'm saying. You know, mechas are definitely sci-fi shit that deviates from what I like.
Yeah, I understand. It's just on the similar edge where traditionality meets progress and how the concepts mesh.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Speaking of that, what are your thoughts on the Muv-Luv series? Have you read any of those titles?
I've read the trilogy. I've read one of the fan discs, which is Photon Flowers, I think, and I've read Schwarzesmarken, which is one of the prequels. So yeah, I'm acquainted. That translation is so good. It's insane.
Which translation?
Oh, the trilogy original. It's one of the best I've read for sure. Super well done.
I really like. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I really like in the trilogy how smooth the writing is. A lot of it, because a lot of Muv-Luv, its strength lies in its character banter, just between the main characters, just getting to know each other, and especially in Extra, hanging out and in the comedic bits. So when you have
liked Extra.
Oh yeah, I liked Extra.
Oof. Okay.
I feel like it gets a lot of hate because the people who join Muv-Luv series are doing it for the mechas and the big dramatic fights. And so having to start off on a very 2000s anime rom-com is a very sour note. And so I think that's where it gets a lot of its hate.
But it's I'm not gonna lie, I find it so boring. I found it sleep-inducing. It was not miss me.
Oh, my heart.
Although, yeah, I'm sorry. I have a friend in particular who's in love with that series, and every time I say that it's the cure to insomnia, he has murderous intent against me. Man. Just speaking it how it is. That game is boring, like super boring.
Oh dear. But you definitely kept through it so that you could reach Alternative and all the rest of them?
Look, it's a funny story. I started with Unlimited, and then I read Extra. That's how I...
How the hell did you start with Unlimited?
Look,
you literally cannot do that. What?
Look, my friend told me start with Extra and then Unlimited. And since he told me that he needed to do that, I decided to do the opposite.
Oh my God.
Why?
Out of spite.
I don't know. That's how it works. Look, I don't think I lost any context. I think I enjoyed the story equally. So it's fine.
Wow. Okay.
You really wanted to immerse yourself in Takeru waking up and having no clue what his world has turned into, huh?
Yeah. In fact, I would even argue that you could start reading from Unlimited and not lose that much context from the total story. Yeah. So I don't know.
No, man, you lose the context of why he cares about his friends so much. It's one thing for him to say it and to be all, oh, guys, I've missed you. And they just don't even know who he is. And you just kind of feel like a weirdo. But you gotta start with Extra. You gotta see those friendships and bonds of camaraderie. I
mean, I would be fine with that if Extra wasn't like 1,000,000 hours long. If Extra was half the length, I maybe would have said yes, sure. Maybe I've made a mistake, but no, Extra is too long. And for no reason at all. If I feel like the games are too long and nothing happens in them whatsoever, then I completely disconnect. So that's how it is.
Oh yeah,
he's
that's fair.
Excellent translation though. Like the translator, I actually know him, and he's a cool dude. I think he now works for Wordpress. Or 7 Seas, one of the two.
Ooh.
As a main translator, and that guy is seriously good. Like he's insane. He's definitely one of the best translators out there right now. Like period of this type of media. You know, he doesn't do visual novels anymore, but he was seriously good.
I wanted to ask you something along those lines. When you have good fan translators, especially in a field like visual novels, you really got to appreciate them while you have them. Because translating a visual novel, it's so long. Doing it as a fan effort means it's coming from a place out of love, which not every VN is going to get. And most of all, there's always the incentive for those fan translators to go official and join some other organization. And I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts about that? Like, do you agree? Or, I mean, is it something to bemoan all the time, or?
I think it's case by case. I mean, the thing is, I'm going to speak about what I believe, so it's probably not going to apply to everyone, but I truly believe that fan translation is not merely a work out of love, but it has purpose, Like, some people do it as a means to become official later, and then disguise it as some sort of like love towards the media, and that's fine. Like, it's fine, it is what it is. Like, a lot of them do it for attention. I do it for attention. I'm not gonna hide the fact, I like the attention. Well, used to. I'm gonna rephrase it. I used to like the attention, That's why my Discord server was open until a few months ago, and then we kicked everyone out. But
Oh wow.
I used to like the attention, being the news, being that guy who does things, and I think many of the people who do things like me share that sentiment. But it is also true that we shouldn't always, we should always keep fan translators with, we should look them with critical lenses, but not overly critical either, because in the end, most of them, and I'm including myself in some cases, are just amateurs, who are trying to like learn and get better, right? The issue comes when amateurs try to do complicated shit because clearly they want the attention, or believe they can, even though clearly they can't, but they are, misguided and think they can do things that they, in the end, they cannot. Or I feel like they will be subpar. As for the official thing, I think it's a noble cause. I mean, I became official, not thanks to fan translating, I'm gonna tell you that much, because I've had fallouts with companies left and right. But yeah, it's a noble cause, I think, and it's fine to ask for money in exchange for your services if you think you are, deserving of it. Should you call yourself a fan translator if you ask for donations? No, I don't think you should. But at the same time, there's no other term for it, so I don't know. I think you shouldn't ask for donations. At some point, I thought about it, but ultimately, it's just like such a complicated thing to work out, especially if you're in a team of people. So yeah, there's just many aspects to it. Plus, I don't know, fan translators, I mean, most of them, I don't know if this still applies to nowadays. Probably not, but it used to apply more in the past. But there are people with that, their commitment is X today, but maybe tomorrow will change for some reason, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, there are people that should be supported, I think, once either there's like consistent progress or once they have released things before, right? And then you can start trusting them, because otherwise, it's easy to say you start a project and you're making progress every X amount of time, but if you don't show results, then obviously you're no better than some random who tries to get the attention for 5 minutes. That's how it is.
Okay, I need to buzz in about the passion in the fan translations. And believe me, it stings me when you said the extra is so boring, because to me it's as sweet as honey. Oh, you know what? Okay, enough with the pea puns. Listen.
Look, listen.
When it comes to passion and what put you on the radar for the podcast as a guest, right? I looked on the site that you have at Daybreak Translations, and I was pleasantly surprised how in-depth you guys go about the Guardians of the Daybreak. I was shocked. I almost read it as a marketing. You went in-depth about the title, you introduced all the characters, and it's all from, I would say, from place of passion. You guys are very passionate, to the point you were willing to fan translate the entire title, and put it on the site to that degree.
Oh yeah, no, that was I mean, look, Akatsuki used to be my favorite game. It definitely is now, right? But I'm obsessed with it, right? To a point of like I'm mentally ill, I think, partially because of this game. So I just need it to be out with all the content I believe that should be read, and then just move on with my life, right? But yeah, I mean, I like that game. That game is the very reason I know this language, right? Obviously, it all started with a spy-based decision, but what kept me was wanting to read that game in particular because I found the images pretty. And later, the writing was actually decent. I enjoy Kinugasa's writing, right? He has big issues, but at the same time, he's a guy that keeps me, hooked over and over. So, I feel like he deserves the attention. Although it is also true that I don't think I am as thorough as other fan translators out there. And that is a matter of fact, right? But that's because I just realized with the years. I'm speaking like an old man right now, but I eventually realized that people don't really care about the details that much, right? Maybe some do, but I don't think the effort sometimes warrants, doing X because 10 people are going to read it when the other 5,000 are just going to read the patch and move on, right? I'm not going to say nobody's going to care, but not many people will care. So, yeah, there's details. I mean, I've made blog posts about each game. I talk about the processes of my work, right? But ultimately, I see the numbers of my website, right? Daybreak has good visit numbers, but my personal blog post, for example, when I go in detail about the game and other shit, detail to it, that doesn't do too hot, right? And I get it. It's hard to read, right, without anime pictures in between, but
yes.
Yeah, you just learn with time that being the details don't really matter. That's the TLDR of my spiel.
With go for it, Amar.
Speaking of people, right? How did you gather the rest of your crew? Because, last one. How one recruits to the beehive?
Oh, I mean,
yeah, I think we'll have to get into the history another time. But yeah, just for if someone wanted to join, like you said, how does that go about?
I mean, if they wanted to join now, impossible. I do not think that's possible. I do not have the willingness to add new members to the team anymore.
Beehive closed.
But yeah, I mean, it would have to be something related to social media or video making, because at this point, that's the only thing I think we lack as a team, right? Overall, but maybe a committed image editor. I suppose that's like the only opening I can think of that could maybe work out. But I haven't found a committed any image editor in years, so I don't know. I've lost hope on that aspect. But okay, let's assume it's 2020. It's 2020, yeah, because that's when Daybreak Translations version 2 started. Version 1 started in 2017. But let's pretend it's 2020. So if someone wanted to join the team, I had a recruitment page back in the day in the website. Not anymore. And back in the Discord, I used to advertise that I was looking for people to help me with X or Y tasks. In those cases, it was editing. I remember when we started, I had this editor that, if you guys know Hata, he introduced me to this guy. And honestly, he wasn't very good. Like, no offense to Clem Hazard. He was my editor back then. But I don't think he was very good at editing, right? So eventually, he left the team. And there was this guy that talked in our server from time to time. His name was Cobra, and he had similar views to mine regarding some visual novels, and I thought he was a very interesting guy. So back then I lacked QA, so I invited him to QA. We had a conversation in PMs, about visual novels in general. I discovered that he used to edit. Well, he was an editor he was editing a book or something for a friend. And I said, well, if you're interested in helping us, why don't you try this out? He started as QA for Akatsuki, and then after some months, he himself decided that, he should maybe take over editing because no one was editing back then. And that's how he became editor. It was just spontaneous, And then other members, it was like they joined the voice calls and they seemed to be interested in the effort. So I invited them to the team because I thought they had potential, and if they say yes, then they join. Otherwise, well, it's okay. See you another day and repeat the process until I found the right people for the right thing. Although the hacker was a different matter. I posted my first blog post in the website was about the issues I had with Hackaway Soft regarding Akatsuki. And in that post, I asked for help to someone out there on the internet who could help me with the extraction of the text. And then this guy sent me a mail through the mailing system of the website, and that's how we met. And he now hacks all of the visual novels I want to work on, pretty much.
Damn.
Oof. What a trip. Then yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, thank you for all the explanations. Thanks for giving a little inside look into the whole translation scene and what goes on in your head too, Barry. Thank you very much for showing up here, and thank you very much for spending the time of your day for all our listeners. And I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah. Thanks all listeners, and thank you, Barry, for joining us. Venture out.
Venture out.